It was a bright and busy afternoon in the city, the sun streaming through the tall windows of a popular café where people came to sip coffee, chat, and watch the world go by. The air smelled of freshly baked pastries, coffee beans, and something sweet from the dessert counter. Waitresses moved quickly between tables, balancing trays with drinks and plates, smiling politely as they served. Among them was a young woman who seemed ordinary at first glance. She wore a simple uniform, had her hair tied neatly, and moved with the quiet confidence of someone used to hard work. At a large corner table, draped in elegant fabrics and surrounded by friends who laughed loudly, sat an heiress known for her wealth and sharp tongue. She had a striking presence, designer clothes, sparkling accessories, and a look that made it clear she was used to being noticed. Today, like many others, she seemed bored. She had already sipped her expensive tea, scrolled through her phone, and laughed at a few amusing messages from her friends. But the amusement faded quickly, and her gaze wandered around the café, resting on the young waitress. The heiress watched her closely, noting how the waitress moved efficiently, serving each table with attention but without drawing unnecessary attention to herself. A small smile curved the heiress' lips. She liked to challenge people, to see their reactions, and today she decided it would be fun to tease someone. A game of skill, but with the upper hand firmly in her own hands, sounded like perfect entertainment. With a mischievous look, she waved at the waitress. The waitress paused briefly, not quite expecting the attention. She wiped her hands on her apron, approaching the table cautiously but politely. The heiress leaned forward, her voice playful and a little teasing. She asked the waitress if she knew how to play chess, and when the waitress nodded slightly, the heiress invited her to join a game. She framed it as a joke, as if the idea of a simple waitress playing chess against someone of her status was humorous. Her friends giggled, some whispering that the girl would probably embarrass herself. For a moment, the waitress hesitated, glancing at the faces around her, sensing their doubts and amusement. But instead of feeling small or intimidated, she felt a spark of curiosity. She had played chess for years, quietly learning strategies and moves that often left her friends and family impressed. This was not a place where she needed to hide her skill. This was a stage, and she decided she would step onto it with grace and confidence. She smiled gently and accepted the invitation. The heiress' smile widened, thinking the game would be over quickly and provide her friends with a good laugh. She stood, helped the waitress to a chair with a dramatic flourish, and gestured for everyone to watch. Patrons nearby noticed the unusual gathering and began observing, intrigued by the scene. The café that had been a normal afternoon of coffee and chatter suddenly felt charged with anticipation. The chessboard was set up carefully on the polished table. The heiress arranged the pieces with a flourish, making exaggerated movements that drew attention to herself. The waitress, in contrast, adjusted her chair quietly and looked at the board with a steady gaze. There was no rush, no nervous twitch, just a calm readiness that made some of the onlookers pause. The heiress' friends whispered, still certain that the waitress would fumble and lose immediately. As the game began, the heiress made the first move with dramatic confidence, a small smirk on her face. She leaned back, crossing her arms, clearly expecting the waitress to make a weak response. But instead, the waitress responded carefully, moving her piece with precision and thoughtfulness. A small murmur ran through the group. Her move was clever and immediately disrupted the heiress' strategy. The heiress raised an eyebrow, momentarily surprised, but quickly hid it with a laugh, pretending it was all part of the fun. The spectators were captivated. This simple moment, the movement of a tiny chess piece, had transformed into a subtle battle of wit. The heiress was no longer just teasing someone weaker. She was now facing someone who was calm, focused, and clearly skilled. The waitress' eyes shone with concentration, her mind moving several steps ahead. The café, once filled with ordinary chatter, now held a quiet tension as people watched, waiting to see what would happen next. The heiress tried to regain her confidence, making her next move faster and more boldly, attempting to intimidate the waitress with her assertiveness. Her friends leaned in, whispering their predictions, sure that the heiress would soon regain control. Yet the waitress countered every move thoughtfully, not rushing, maintaining a steady composure that made the heiress' boldness appear clumsy in comparison. Each move seemed to draw more attention, and more people stopped what they were doing to watch, intrigued by the unexpected challenge. For the first time that afternoon, the heiress felt a flicker of uncertainty. She had expected to dominate, to amuse herself and her friends with an easy victory. But the game was not going as planned. The waitress did not seem intimidated or flustered. She was confident, observant, and deliberate. Each piece moved with purpose, each choice revealing a mind that was sharp and capable. The heiress' smile faltered slightly, and she adjusted her posture, trying to mask the surprise. Her friends noticed the change, whispering among themselves, sensing that the simple joke had turned into something far more interesting. The waitress continued to play with quiet focus, aware of the attention but not distracted by it. Her calm demeanor made her presence commanding, even without the trappings of wealth or status. As the opening moves concluded, it became clear that this was no ordinary game. The heiress had underestimated the waitress, and the audience could sense it. The tension in the café was palpable. People leaned closer, some holding their breath, all curious about what would come next. The heiress, for all her wealth and confidence, realized that the game was not going to be easy, and the thrill of the challenge began to take hold. The waitress smiled faintly, a subtle expression of determination rather than arrogance. She had accepted the game as a challenge, not a spectacle, and her skill was slowly shifting the dynamic of the room. What had started as a joke was transforming into a genuine test of intelligence, patience, and strategy. The heiress glanced at the board, her eyes narrowing slightly, realizing that the game might reveal more than just a winner and a loser. It might reveal character. For the first part of the afternoon, the café was alive with the quiet drama of the chess match. The waitress, with her unassuming presence and skillful mind, had turned the prank into a captivating display of intellect. Patrons whispered in awe, some astonished at the confidence and knowledge of someone they had assumed would be ordinary. The heiress, meanwhile, was beginning to learn an unexpected lesson about humility and respect. The scene was set for a story that no one in that café would forget. What started as a simple joke to entertain a few friends had evolved into a tense and fascinating match, where skill, intelligence, and composure mattered far more than wealth, status, or appearances. Everyone watching sensed that something remarkable was unfolding, and the young waitress, quietly seated at the table, was at the heart of it, ready to demonstrate that real talent often comes from the most unexpected places. The game continued, and the café seemed to hold its breath. Every move on the chessboard felt deliberate, almost like a silent conversation between the heiress and the waitress. The heiress leaned forward, her fingers tapping lightly on the table as she planned her next move. She had expected the game to be over quickly, a source of amusement for herself and her friends, but it was turning out to be far more challenging than she had imagined. The waitress remained calm, her eyes focused on the board. She moved each piece with care, thinking several steps ahead. There was a quiet intensity in her demeanor that caught the attention of everyone watching. Patrons who had been sipping their coffee now stood or leaned in, unable to tear their eyes away from the unexpected duel. The heiress' friends exchanged glances, their amusement fading into surprise and curiosity. At first, the heiress tried to dominate the game with bold and aggressive moves. She moved quickly, almost hoping that speed and confidence would overwhelm the waitress. But each move was met with a precise and thoughtful counter by the waitress. It was clear she had studied the game carefully, perhaps even practiced in private for years. The heiress' smirk began to falter as she realized that this was not going to be an easy victory. A few spectators whispered to each other, astonished by the waitress' skill. She didn't speak much, letting her actions on the board communicate her abilities. There was something graceful and commanding about her movements, as if she belonged in a place far beyond the café, in a quiet world where strategy and patience ruled. The heiress felt a twinge of frustration, a feeling she was not accustomed to. Usually, her confidence and charm were enough to get her through any situation, but now she felt the stirrings of uncertainty. The heiress decided to change her strategy. She slowed down, thinking carefully, trying to anticipate the waitress' responses. She realized she needed to outsmart someone who was not only skilled but also calm under pressure. Each decision required attention, and she felt the weight of the challenge pressing down on her. Her friends watched silently now, sensing that the light-hearted prank had transformed into a true test of intellect. The waitress moved her pieces with precision, her eyes never leaving the board. She was patient, letting the heiress make her moves first, studying the patterns and planning ahead. Every subtle gesture, every slight pause, showed a depth of understanding that impressed the onlookers. It was clear she had a natural talent for the game, coupled with dedication and practice. The café had become a small arena, and she was holding her own with skill and composure. As the game progressed, the heiress' confidence wavered. She had underestimated her opponent, and it was becoming obvious. The waitress remained composed, showing no signs of stress or panic. Each move she made was carefully calculated, sometimes forcing the heiress to pause and rethink her strategy. There were moments when the heiress' bold plans were entirely disrupted by a single move from the waitress, leaving her struggling to regain control. The audience began to react subtly. Patrons who had initially come to enjoy their coffee were now fully engaged, leaning closer and whispering about the unexpected twist in the match. Some admired the heiress' courage to challenge someone from a different social world, while others were captivated by the waitress' unexpected brilliance. The balance of power was shifting with each move, and everyone could feel it. The heiress tried to remain composed, smiling and laughing lightly, but inside she felt a rising tension. Her arrogance had been challenged, and she was experiencing the rare sensation of uncertainty. It was both unsettling and strangely exciting. She had thought this would be an easy game, a way to entertain herself and her friends, but the dynamics had changed. The waitress' intelligence and poise were transforming the encounter into something far more meaningful. With each passing minute, the heiress became more aware of the lessons hidden within the game. It wasn't just about winning. It was about strategy, observation, patience, and respect. The waitress embodied these qualities effortlessly, showing that skill and composure mattered more than wealth or social standing. The heiress' friends, who had initially laughed and joked, now watched in silence, learning alongside her. The waitress occasionally glanced up at the audience, acknowledging their presence with subtle nods and quiet confidence. She did not boast, did not seek approval, yet her skill demanded attention. Each move she made on the board seemed to tell a story of focus, intelligence, and quiet strength. People began to admire her not just for her chess abilities but for the way she carried herself, calm and self-assured in a world that often underestimated her. The heiress, growing more introspective, realized she had underestimated the waitress not because of the game but because of her own assumptions. She had assumed that wealth and status guaranteed superiority, that someone who appeared ordinary could not possess extraordinary talent. Now she saw that intelligence and skill could be found anywhere, and that humility and dedication were just as important as confidence and charm. The game continued, each move more intense than the last. The heiress' bold attempts to dominate were countered by the waitress' thoughtful strategies, forcing her to rethink and adapt. The audience sensed the growing tension, the silent battle of wits that transcended social status and expectations. It became clear that the outcome of the game was uncertain, and the suspense held everyone captive. The heiress began to respect her opponent, recognizing the depth of her understanding and the precision of her planning. She no longer saw the game as a joke or a way to show superiority. Instead, it became a challenge, an opportunity to test her own abilities against someone unexpected. The excitement of the game, the thrill of the unexpected, created a charged atmosphere that filled the café. The waitress maintained her focus, her calm demeanor never wavering. She anticipated the heiress' moves, adapted quickly, and executed strategies that left both the heiress and the audience amazed. Every piece moved with intention. Every decision reflected her careful planning and insight. It was a lesson in patience, skill, and confidence, and everyone present could feel the intensity of the moment. The heiress, realizing she had underestimated the waitress, started to feel admiration mixed with a sense of humility. She had expected an easy victory, but was now faced with someone who could challenge her intellect and determination. It was a new experience for her, and though it was slightly unsettling, it was also enlightening. She began to see the value of observing, learning, and respecting the abilities of others, regardless of their social standing. As the game entered a critical phase, the café was silent. Every spectator focused on the chessboard. The heiress' boldness had met its match, and the waitress' skill was shining through. Each move seemed more strategic than the last, with careful planning and anticipation. The tension was palpable, and it was clear that this was no ordinary game. It had become a moment of learning, respect, and revelation. The heiress' friends, who had been skeptical at first, now watched in awe. They had come expecting a humorous display, but instead, they were witnessing a true contest of skill and intelligence. The waitress had turned the game into something unforgettable, a demonstration of talent and composure that went far beyond appearances. By the end of the part of the game covered here, it was evident that the heiress' arrogance had been challenged, and the waitress had proven herself in ways that were both subtle and powerful. The audience felt the tension and the excitement, caught in the unfolding drama. What had started as a playful joke had transformed into a meaningful and engaging story, a lesson in skill, humility, and respect. The heiress leaned back, her mind racing, aware that the next moves would determine more than just the outcome of the game. She had learned a valuable lesson about underestimating others and about the power of focus and intelligence. The waitress, calm and unassuming, had captured the attention and admiration of everyone in the café. It was a moment that no one would forget, a story of skill, courage, and unexpected brilliance that had turned a simple afternoon into something extraordinary. The tension in the café grew as the game moved into the next stage. Patrons had stopped chatting entirely, their eyes fixed on the chessboard where two very different worlds were colliding. The heiress, who had started the game with laughter and playful arrogance, was now showing signs of concentration. Every move she made was deliberate, each one carefully considered as she tried to regain control of the board. Her friends leaned forward, whispering advice, offering suggestions, but their encouragement seemed unnecessary. The real challenge was unfolding between the heiress and the waitress. The waitress remained calm and steady. Her eyes moved across the board with focus, as if she were reading a story written in the positions of the chess pieces. She did not rush and she did not panic. Her mind worked several steps ahead, calculating possibilities and anticipating the heiress' responses. Every move she made was precise and measured, showing an understanding of the game that was surprising to everyone watching. Even those who had been skeptical of her abilities now found themselves admiring her skill. The heiress decided to switch strategies. She had been playing aggressively, trying to dominate early, but that approach was not working. Now she attempted to be more cautious, defending her pieces and thinking carefully before making any move. She felt the pressure rising, a sensation she was not used to. Usually, her confidence carried her through any situation, but the intensity of the game was challenging her patience and her pride. As the game progressed, it became clear that the waitress was not just good. She was exceptional. She anticipated the heiress' plans and blocked her moves skillfully. Sometimes, a single piece would be moved in a way that forced the heiress to reconsider her entire strategy. Each successful move by the waitress drew subtle gasps and murmurs from the audience. Patrons who had been sipping coffee now leaned in closer, unable to look away from the fascinating duel. The heiress' friends whispered among themselves, astonished. They had expected a short, entertaining display, but what they were witnessing was a real contest of intellect and skill. The heiress, who had intended to humiliate the waitress in front of everyone, now felt the game slipping from her control. Her playful smirk had been replaced by a focused frown, a sign that she was taking this seriously for the first time. The waitress, on the other hand, seemed unaffected by the attention. She did not glance at the audience or react to the whispers and gasps. Her focus was entirely on the board. Every move was deliberate, demonstrating patience and understanding. There was a quiet confidence in her actions, a calmness that seemed almost magnetic. Even the heiress noticed this, and she could not help but respect the composure and skill of her opponent. With each passing turn, the heiress felt a mixture of frustration and admiration. She had underestimated the waitress, and that realization weighed on her. Her attempts to outmaneuver the waitress were met with countermoves that left her momentarily stunned. The audience sensed the shift in power. The waitress, once underestimated, was now clearly taking control of the game. The heiress tried to regain her advantage with bold maneuvers, moving pieces aggressively and attempting traps. But the waitress responded with precision, navigating the board effortlessly. Each time the heiress thought she had a chance to corner her opponent, the waitress found a way to escape, to counter, and to create new opportunities. It was a subtle display of strategy and intelligence, and it was captivating to watch. The atmosphere in the café changed. What had started as a playful prank became a serious and compelling contest. Patrons who had come for a quiet afternoon were now fully engaged, witnessing a battle of minds. The heiress friends no longer whispered advice. They watched in awe, recognizing that the game had transformed into something extraordinary. The heiress herself began to see the chessboard not just as a game, but as a mirror reflecting her own assumptions and limitations. The waitress moved her pieces with steady hands and a clear mind. She anticipated the heiress' attempts to regain control and countered them gracefully. Her strategy was not just about winning. It was about demonstrating skill and composure under pressure. Each move drew quiet admiration from the audience, who were increasingly captivated by her intelligence and poise. The heiress realized she was facing someone who was not easily intimidated. The waitress did not react to the heiress' boldness or the attention of the crowd. She remained focused, calm, and methodical. The heiress had expected to overwhelm her opponent with confidence and status, but now she was learning an important lesson. Intelligence and skill could not be measured by appearances or wealth. As the game continued, the heiress' confidence was challenged more and more. She tried to anticipate the waitress' next moves, but the young woman seemed to be one step ahead at every turn. Each decision required careful thought, and the heiress felt the pressure mounting. Her friends watched silently, realizing that the outcome was uncertain, and that the game had become more than just entertainment. The waitress maintained her focus, analyzing every possible move and outcome. She played with patience and strategy, not allowing herself to be rushed or distracted. Her ability to stay calm under pressure impressed everyone in the café. The heiress, who had come to assert her superiority, was now facing a real challenge that tested her intellect and patience. The audience became completely absorbed in the match. Conversations stopped, and all eyes were on the chessboard. People watched in amazement as the heiress and the waitress engaged in a silent battle of minds. The heiress' earlier arrogance had been replaced by concentration and respect for her opponent. She was learning that skill, patience, and intelligence could come from unexpected places. The waitress occasionally looked up at the crowd, but only briefly, acknowledging their presence with quiet confidence. She did not seek attention or applause, but her skill spoke for itself. Each move was thoughtful, deliberate, and precise. The heiress watched her carefully, recognizing the depth of understanding and preparation behind every decision. The game was no longer a joke. It was a serious and impressive display of intellect. As the game entered a critical phase, the heiress' frustration grew, but so did her admiration. She realized that her opponent's calmness and skill were formidable, and that winning would not come easily. The audience could feel the tension and excitement building, aware that the match was reaching a turning point. Every move became more meaningful, more strategic, and more revealing of the players' minds. The waitress moved her pieces carefully, creating opportunities while defending her position. She did not rush, but instead let the heiress make the first move, then responded with precision. Her calm demeanor and thoughtful strategy impressed everyone, including the heiress. Each move demonstrated patience, intelligence, and foresight, qualities that were becoming increasingly clear to the spectators. The heiress began to see the chessboard differently. She realized that the game was not just about winning. It was about strategy, observation, and respect. She had underestimated the waitress and now understood that true skill could come from anyone, regardless of appearance or social status. The audience sensed this shift, feeling the importance and excitement of the match. The game continued with careful and deliberate moves. The heiress tried bold strategies, but the waitress countered with precision, demonstrating her understanding of the game and her ability to stay calm under pressure. The audience watched, captivated by the unfolding drama and the unexpected skill of the waitress. What had begun as a simple prank had become a remarkable display of intelligence and composure. The heiress friends no longer whispered advice. They were silent, observing and learning. They could see the growth of their friend as she adapted to the challenge and recognized the talent of the waitress. The audience felt the excitement, the tension, and the admiration for the skillful young woman who had transformed a casual afternoon into a memorable and engaging event. By the end of this part of the game, it was clear that the heiress' arrogance had been challenged, and the waitress' skill was undeniable. The audience was fully engaged, captivated by the intelligence and poise displayed on the chessboard. The heiress, while still competitive, had learned a valuable lesson about underestimating others and respecting their abilities. The waitress, calm and composed, had proven herself in a way that no one could ignore, and the café was filled with the quiet thrill of witnessing something extraordinary. The atmosphere in the café had grown almost electric as the game entered its later stages. The initial laughter and casual chatter had faded, replaced by an intense focus that enveloped everyone present. Patrons leaned forward, eyes fixed on the chessboard where two very different people were engaged in a battle of minds. The heiress, once so confident and playful, now wore a serious expression. Her fingers tapped lightly on the table as she studied the board, considering her next move with careful calculation. The waitress remained calm, her focus unwavering. Every move she made was deliberate, precise, and thoughtful. It was clear she had anticipated many of the heiress' strategies and had counterplans ready. Her movements were fluid, almost graceful, as if she were dancing through a well-practiced routine. She did not speak, did not need to. Her actions on the board spoke volumes about her intelligence, patience, and strategic thinking. The heiress, feeling the pressure of the match, began to experiment with new tactics. She tried bold and aggressive maneuvers, hoping to surprise the waitress and regain control of the game. But each attempt was met with a calculated counter. The waitress' skill in predicting and responding to these moves was impressive, leaving the heiress to reconsider her approach again and again. Her usual confidence was tested in ways she had never experienced before, and a mix of frustration and admiration began to grow within her. Spectators whispered quietly among themselves, captivated by the unfolding drama. Some admired the heiress for her courage to take on the challenge, while others were drawn to the quiet brilliance of the waitress. The game had transcended its original purpose as a prank. What was supposed to be a moment of amusement had evolved into a captivating contest of skill, intellect, and composure. Everyone watching could feel the tension, the anticipation, and the subtle shift in power between the two players. The heiress' friends exchanged glances, noticing the change in their companion. She had started the game with playful arrogance, but now her focus and seriousness revealed that she had realized the stakes were higher than she had imagined. The waitress' calm and collected approach made the heiress' earlier confidence seem almost superficial. Each counter-move by the waitress challenged not only the heiress' strategy but also her assumptions about the people around her. The heiress tried to create a trap, setting up a sequence she thought would lead to victory. She moved her pieces with precision, carefully considering each step. But the waitress anticipated it. With a single, subtle move, she dismantled the trap and gained a positional advantage. Gasps and quiet murmurs spread through the café, drawing the attention of even more patrons. It was a moment that highlighted the waitress' skill and ability to remain calm under pressure. The heiress leaned back slightly, studying the board with a mixture of frustration and respect. She had underestimated her opponent, and that realization stung. Her arrogance had been challenged, and for the first time, she experienced the humility that comes from being outsmarted. Yet, there was also a sense of exhilaration. The challenge was stimulating, pushing her to think more deeply and adapt her strategies. The game had become more than a contest. It was a lesson in patience, intelligence, and respect. The waitress continued to play with quiet confidence. She moved her pieces with purpose, never rushing, and always considering the bigger picture. Her approach was methodical, calculated, and effective. She anticipated potential threats and responded in ways that left the heiress momentarily uncertain. The audience was captivated, watching as the balance of power shifted subtly yet unmistakably. As the game progressed, the heiress' frustration grew, but so did her admiration for the waitress' abilities. She realized that winning would require more than just confidence or bold moves. It would demand careful thought, patience, and adaptability. Each decision on the board became increasingly significant, and the heiress found herself analyzing not just her own strategy but also the skill and mindset of her opponent. The café had become completely silent, with everyone watching the match in rapt attention. Patrons leaned in, their eyes following every move, sensing that the outcome was uncertain. The heiress' friends were equally captivated, now fully invested in the unfolding drama. They had expected a light-hearted game, but what they were witnessing was something extraordinary, a genuine display of intelligence and strategy that demanded attention and respect. The waitress moved her pieces carefully, balancing offense and defense with skill. She created opportunities while neutralizing potential threats, demonstrating her ability to think ahead and anticipate multiple outcomes. Her calm and focused demeanor contrasted sharply with the heiress' growing tension. Every move she made reinforced her skill and composure, earning quiet admiration from the audience. The heiress, recognizing the challenge she faced, took a deep breath and adjusted her strategy once more. She attempted to regain control, planning several moves in advance and carefully weighing her options. Yet, each attempt was met with a calculated response from the waitress. The heiress' confidence was tested, and she began to appreciate the depth of her opponent's understanding of the game. She realized that skill, patience, and intelligence could not be underestimated, no matter how ordinary someone might appear. The audience, now fully engrossed, watched with bated breath. Each move by the heiress and the waitress was met with anticipation, as spectators followed the intricate dance of strategy unfolding on the chessboard. The atmosphere was charged, a mix of tension, excitement, and admiration for the skill and composure of both players. What had started as a playful prank had become a powerful lesson in humility, intelligence, and respect. The heiress continued to make calculated moves, trying to regain her advantage. She was learning to adapt, to observe carefully, and to anticipate the responses of a skilled opponent. Each move required thought, patience, and focus, qualities that the heiress had not fully exercised before. The waitress, meanwhile, maintained her steady approach, calmly analyzing the board and responding with precision. It was clear that the outcome of the game remained uncertain, and the suspense gripped everyone in the café. The heiress' friends watched silently, recognizing the transformation in their companion. She had started the game with playful arrogance but had grown into a focused and thoughtful competitor. They admired the waitress' skill and composure, realizing that this encounter had taught valuable lessons about intelligence, patience, and humility. The spectators, too, were captivated, drawn into the unfolding drama and impressed by the unexpected display of talent. The waitress moved with quiet confidence, her strategy unfolding with precision and care. She created opportunities, neutralized threats, and anticipated the heiress' moves with remarkable foresight. Each decision was deliberate, demonstrating a deep understanding of the game and an ability to remain calm under pressure. The heiress, observing carefully, began to appreciate the skill and composure required to maintain such a level of play. As the game reached its final stages, the heiress felt a mix of emotions. She was challenged, tested, and humbled, yet also exhilarated by the intellectual duel. The audience could feel the tension, the excitement, and the admiration for both players. The game had become more than a contest. It was a demonstration of skill, patience, and respect, leaving a lasting impression on everyone present. The waitress continued to play with unwavering focus, her every move calculated and intentional. She anticipated threats, created opportunities, and maintained her composure. The heiress, now fully engaged in the match, adapted her strategies, thinking carefully about each move and its consequences. The audience remained captivated, aware that the outcome was still uncertain and that every decision mattered. By the end of this part of the game, it was clear that the heiress had been challenged in ways she had never expected. The waitress' skill, patience, and intelligence had transformed the game from a simple prank into a captivating and meaningful contest. The audience, the heiress, and even her friends had learned valuable lessons about humility, strategy, and respect. The café, once a place of casual conversation and leisure, had become a stage for an extraordinary display of talent, focus, and human spirit. The final stage of the game brought a stillness over the café. Every patron, from the regulars to the newcomers, had stopped their conversations, their attention fully captured by the unfolding chess match. The atmosphere was tense, electric with anticipation. The heiress, who had started the game with playful arrogance, now displayed a seriousness that reflected the lessons she had learned throughout the match. Her posture was upright, her eyes focused, and her mind working diligently to navigate the final moves. The waitress remained calm, her composure unwavering. She moved with careful deliberation, her actions precise and purposeful. Each move was a testament to her skill, patience, and foresight. She had anticipated the heiress' strategies, adapted to her bold maneuvers, and maintained control of the board through careful calculation. Her quiet confidence was magnetic, drawing the attention and admiration of everyone present. The heiress made her move, attempting a bold strategy in hopes of regaining control. Her fingers hovered over the chess pieces, her mind calculating potential outcomes and responses. But the waitress, always one step ahead, countered effortlessly. A subtle yet powerful move shifted the balance of power further in her favor. The heiress paused, a mixture of surprise and respect crossing her face. She had underestimated the depth of her opponent's skill and the precision with which she approached the game. Patrons leaned in, their eyes wide with amazement. The initial laughter that had filled the café was replaced by quiet awe. The heiress' friends whispered among themselves, astonished by the turn of events. The game that had begun as a light-hearted prank had transformed into a profound display of intellect, patience, and composure. Everyone in the room sensed the significance of what was unfolding. The heiress' mind raced. She realized that her previous assumptions about the waitress, based solely on appearances and social status, had been completely wrong. This realization was humbling. She recognized that true skill, intelligence, and talent could be found anywhere, and that underestimating someone based on superficial judgments was a mistake she would not forget. The game had become a lesson, a mirror reflecting her own arrogance and the importance of respect. The waitress moved her pieces with precision, creating opportunities while neutralizing threats. Her strategy was impeccable, balancing offense and defense with elegance and foresight. Each move demonstrated her deep understanding of the game, her patience, and her ability to remain calm under pressure. The heiress observed intently, realizing that the challenge was not only in her opponent's skill but also in her unwavering composure and confidence. As the game progressed, the heiress tried to anticipate the waitress' moves, attempting to outthink and outmaneuver her. Yet, the waitress consistently remained one step ahead. Each move she made forced the heiress to reconsider her strategy, to think more deeply, and to act with greater care. The audience watched, captivated by the intellectual duel unfolding before them. The tension in the café was palpable, and the sense of anticipation grew with each passing moment. The heiress' friends, who had come expecting a light-hearted display, were now fully engaged and deeply impressed. They observed in silence, recognizing the intelligence and skill of the waitress. The audience admired the heiress' ability to adapt, her courage to face a formidable opponent, and her willingness to learn from the experience. The game had transcended entertainment. It had become a lesson in humility, patience, and respect for talent. The waitress, with her calm and deliberate approach, maintained control of the game. She anticipated potential threats, created opportunities, and executed her strategy flawlessly. Her composure remained unshaken, even as the heiress attempted bold and creative maneuvers. It was evident to everyone present that the outcome of the game would not be determined by arrogance or status, but by skill, intelligence, and thoughtful strategy. The heiress' frustration grew, but it was tempered by admiration. She had underestimated her opponent, and now she was confronted with a rare and valuable lesson: the importance of recognizing and respecting the abilities of others. The audience sensed the shift in dynamics, noting the heiress' transformation from playful arrogance to focused respect. The game had become more than a contest. It had become a moment of learning and revelation. The waitress made another precise move, subtly positioning her pieces for an advantageous endgame. The heiress, fully aware of the shift in momentum, adjusted her strategy, considering multiple possibilities and outcomes. Her focus was intense, her mind fully engaged in the challenge. She realized that the game was not just about winning but about understanding, observing, and respecting her opponent's abilities. The café was silent, everyone holding their breath as the final moves approached. The tension was palpable. Patrons leaned in, their eyes following every piece on the board. The heiress' friends watched in awe, recognizing the skill and intelligence displayed by the waitress. The heiress, fully immersed in the game, understood that the challenge had transformed her perspective. She had learned the value of patience, strategic thinking, and respect for talent, regardless of social status. The audience, too, was captivated, witnessing a rare and memorable demonstration of skill and composure. The waitress continued to move with quiet confidence. Each decision was intentional, every move calculated. She maintained control while allowing the heiress to make her moves, subtly guiding the flow of the game. The heiress, realizing the depth of her opponent's understanding, adapted her strategy, thinking several steps ahead and weighing the potential consequences of each move. The game had evolved into a delicate balance of intellect, patience, and observation. As the final moves drew near, the heiress recognized the inevitability of the outcome. Her bold strategies had been countered, her confidence tested, and her assumptions challenged. The audience sensed the climax approaching, their anticipation reaching a peak. The waitress, calm and poised, executed a final move that set the stage for the endgame. The heiress studied the board, realizing that the game had reached a critical juncture. In a moment of brilliance, the waitress made her final move, a subtle and decisive checkmate that left the heiress stunned. The café erupted in applause, the quiet tension giving way to admiration and excitement. The heiress, though momentarily speechless, smiled, acknowledging the skill and composure of her opponent. The audience cheered, impressed by the unexpected brilliance of the waitress and the transformation of the heiress through the course of the game. The heiress extended her hand, offering a gesture of respect and gratitude. The waitress accepted it with a gentle smile, her composure unwavering. In that moment, the game transcended competition. It had become a story of learning, growth, and the recognition of talent and intelligence. The heiress had been humbled, the waitress had demonstrated her skill, and the audience had witnessed a remarkable display of intellect and human spirit. Patrons returned to their tables, conversations slowly resuming, but the memory of the game lingered. The heiress friends spoke in hushed tones, expressing their admiration for both the heiress' adaptability and the waitress' brilliance. The heiress herself reflected on the experience, understanding that true skill and intelligence could not be measured by appearances or social standing. The game had taught her valuable lessons in humility, patience, and respect for others. The waitress, having returned to her work, moved quietly and efficiently among the tables, her actions unassuming yet commanding respect. The game had ended, but its impact remained. Everyone who had witnessed the match carried with them a sense of awe and inspiration. The heiress, humbled and enlightened, had learned to value skill, patience, and intelligence above all else. The audience had witnessed a true story of talent, composure, and human spirit. In the end, the chess match was more than a simple game. It was a powerful reminder that intelligence, patience, and skill can emerge from unexpected places. The heiress, having learned the importance of humility and respect, left the cafe with a new perspective on life and human potential. The waitress, quietly confident and skilled, had left an indelible mark on everyone present. The story of the game, and the lessons it carried, would be remembered long after the pieces had been packed away, a testament to the power of talent, composure, and unexpected brilliance.